The night at SpaceX headquarters was like any other. A quiet hum of computers, engineers moving between workstations, and Elon Musk deep in concentration, staring at a complex Mars mission model on his tablet. His mind was locked in calculations, launch windows, and material resilience studies. Mars was still years away, but he refused to let the vision slip through his fingers. Then, the knock at his door. Clara, his assistant, stepped inside, hesitating. That was unusual. Clara never hesitated. "Elon," she said softly, holding a tablet to her chest. "You need to see this." He barely looked up. "Unless it's about Mars, it can wait." "It's not about Mars," she replied. "It's about someone who believes in you more than anyone else." That caught his attention. His eyes flicked to the tablet as Clara placed it on his desk and pressed play. The screen lit up, revealing a dimly lit hospital room. In the center of the frame was a boy, no older than 10, lying in bed. His skin was pale, his head bald from treatment, but his eyes were alive. They were bright, filled with something Elon recognized instantly: hope. "Hi, Mr. Musk." The boy's voice was weak but unwavering. "My name is Alex. I'm 10 years old and I love space. When I grow up, I want to be one of the first kids on Mars, but the doctors say I won't make it that far." Elon felt a strange pressure in his chest. "That's okay," Alex continued, smiling, "because I know you're gonna get us there. I believe in you. So, I just have one wish. I want to meet you, just once, just for a little bit, because if I can't go to Mars myself, at least I want to talk to the guy who's gonna take us there." The video ended and silence filled the room. Elon leaned back in his chair, staring at the frozen image of Alex's bright, expectant face. "Is this real?" he asked, his voice quieter than he intended. Clara nodded. "His mother sent it through a charity foundation. He's been battling leukemia for 2 years. Doctors don't think he has much time left." Elon exhaled, rubbing his temples. This was different. This wasn't investors demanding returns. This wasn't media questioning his sanity. This was a child who had absolute, unshakable faith in him, and that made this heavier than anything he'd ever carried. Finally, he set the tablet down. "How soon can we make this happen?" Clara blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "You mean you're going?" "Of course, I'm going." He grabbed his phone. "Get the jet ready. I need to see this kid." Clara hesitated before nodding, already making calls. Elon Musk had been called a hero before, but something told him that this moment was going to change more than just one child's life. It was about to change his own. The car ride to the airstrip was silent, but Elon's mind was anything but. The driver navigated the empty roads with ease, but the real journey was happening inside Elon's thoughts. He kept replaying the video, the boy's voice, his smile. Despite everything, Elon had been called a visionary, a genius, a disruptor. He had heard people say he was building a future for humanity, but until now he had never thought of it this way, not as something personal, not as something that a single child's life depended on. He wasn't sure how to process that. As the car rolled to a stop beside the waiting jet, Clara spoke for the first time since they left. "You don't have to do this, you know. You're already his hero. Even if you never met him, he would still believe in you." Elon didn't respond immediately. He stepped out of the car, the cold night air stinging his face as he stood at the foot of the jet stairs. He turned back to Clara, his expression unreadable. "He deserves more than just an image of me. He deserves something real." The engines hummed as Elon settled into his seat inside the jet. But even as the aircraft lifted off the ground, his mind wasn't in the sky. It was in a small hospital room with a boy who believed in something bigger than himself. He stared out the window as the world shrank below him, but he had never felt heavier. "What if I disappoint him?" he muttered, the words slipping out before he even realized he had spoken. Across the cabin, Clara looked up from her tablet. "You won't! You don't know that!" He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "People see me as this larger-than-life figure. To Alex, I'm not just Elon Musk. I'm the guy who made Mars possible. What if I don't live up to that?" Clara closed her tablet and met his gaze. "Have you ever considered that Alex's expectations aren't what you think they are? He's not asking for Mars. He's asking for you." The words hit him harder than he expected. He had spent his entire life chasing the extraordinary, building visions of the future, but he had never stopped to think about the power of simply being present. Outside, the sky stretched wide and endless. For years, he had envisioned humanity reaching for the stars. But now, for the first time, those stars felt personal. The hospital walls were covered in drawings, planets, rockets, and a hand-drawn SpaceX logo. As Elon stepped inside, he was greeted not by a frail, sick child, but by a dreamer who had mapped out an entire future on crumpled sheets of paper. Alex beamed as soon as he saw Elon. His mother gasped, placing a hand over her mouth, overwhelmed by the sight of the most influential man in the world stepping into her son's tiny hospital room. "Mr. Musk!" Alex's voice was weak but full of energy. "I knew you'd come!" Elon knelt beside the bed, taking in the eager look in Alex's eyes. "Of course I did, Commander Alex. I heard you were training to be an astronaut." Alex grinned. "I'm practicing for zero gravity. Look!" He lifted his arms and wiggled his fingers, pretending to float. His laughter was pure, weightless. Elon chuckled, but there was a tightness in his throat. "I have something for you!" Alex grabbed a small, folded piece of paper from his bedside table and handed it to Elon. "It's my Mars mission plan. I wrote everything we need. You just have to build it." Elon carefully unfolded the paper, revealing a sketch of a rocket drawn in shaky lines with tiny stick figures labeled "First Humans on Mars." One was circled in red. Alex. For the first time in a long while, Elon was speechless. "Do you think people like me can live on Mars one day?" Alex asked softly. Elon looked at the drawing, then at the boy, who was staring at him like his answer would determine the fate of the universe. He cleared his throat. "It won't be easy. It'll take time. But we're working on it." Alex's small hand grabbed his. "Then promise me you won't stop trying." And in that moment, everything changed. This wasn't about rockets. This wasn't about technology or funding or the impossible odds. It was about keeping a promise to a boy who believed in him more than anyone else ever had. Elon swallowed hard. "I promise." Alex's eyes lit up. He believed him. Completely. As Elon left the hospital that night, the folded mission plan still in his pocket, he knew one thing. Mars couldn't wait. Elon had always been relentless, but now he was unstoppable. The next morning, he called an emergency meeting at SpaceX. All projects that weren't related to Mars were put on hold. Every engineer, every resource, every waking moment would be dedicated to accelerating the timeline. "We need a fully operational Mars colony within a decade," he told his team. "No excuses." His top engineers exchanged glances. "That's impossible." Elon's voice was calm but firm. "Then redefine possible." Investors balked. "This will bankrupt us. The world isn't ready for Mars." Elon stared them down. "I don't care. We're doing it." For months, SpaceX became a war room. Testing, rebuilding, breaking barriers. Elon barely slept. He reread Alex's mission plan every night. Then disaster struck. A test rocket exploded mid-air, a failure so catastrophic it set the program back years. The media pounced. Elon Musk's Mars dream goes up in flames. SpaceX can't deliver on its promises. The man who wanted to reach the stars is falling back to Earth. Inside SpaceX, engineers looked defeated. Investors pulled out. Stocks plummeted. Clara found Elon in his office, staring at the wreckage footage. "You need to rest," she said. Elon shook his head. "I can't. I made a promise." Clara hesitated. "Elon, even if you don't make it in time for Alex, he'll still believe in you." His stomach twisted. That wasn't good enough. He wanted Alex to see it, to see that the impossible could be done. Then his phone buzzed, a message from Alex's mother. "He's getting weaker. He wanted me to tell you. It's okay if he doesn't make it. Just don't give up, okay?" Elon felt his chest tighten. He closed his eyes, gripping the mission plan still in his pocket. Failure wasn't an option. The next morning, he walked into SpaceX's conference room and looked his team in the eyes. "We don't stop," he said. "We don't slow down. We fix it, and we go again." The mission wasn't over, not yet. The explosion had rattled the entire team. Engineers whispered about setbacks that could push the Mars mission back another decade. Investors were abandoning ship. The media painted Elon as a man chasing an impossible dream. But failure had never stopped him before, and it wasn't about to start now. Elon sat in his office, staring at Alex's hand-drawn Mars plan. The simple, wobbly lines of a stick-figure astronaut standing next to a SpaceX rocket, the red circle around Alex. His jaw tightened. They had to push forward. The next morning, Elon walked into the SpaceX control room. His presence alone silenced the room. "We don't stop," he said, his voice steady. "We don't slow down. We fixed a problem, and we go again." His team hesitated. Was he serious? "Sir, the last failure was a lesson," Elon cut in. "Not a death sentence. The problem wasn't the idea. It was execution. We adjust, we rebuild, and we launch again." Clara, standing in the back, saw something different in him this time. This wasn't just about SpaceX. This was personal. Elon's schedule became ruthless. Meetings ran into the early hours of the morning. Every failed calculation was redone. Every weak design reinforced. He pushed his team to their limits, but they followed. Because no one in that room wanted to let him down. Tesla and SpaceX stocks crashed harder than ever before, but Elon didn't flinch. He ignored doubt, criticism, and pressure, because he knew what they didn't. Time was running out. Then another message arrived, this time from Alex's mother. "He's asking for you." Elon froze. The world could wait. Mars could wait. But Alex couldn't. He grabbed his jacket and without a word to his team walked out. The hospital air was too sterile, too quiet. It was nothing like the last time Elon had been here. The walls were still covered in space drawings, but something had changed. The once vibrant colors seemed duller. The room felt smaller. The energy that had radiated from Alex just weeks ago was barely a flicker now. His mother stood by the door, her eyes red but warm. "He's been waiting for you." Elon swallowed hard and stepped inside. Alex was lying in bed, his frail body wrapped in blankets. But when he saw Elon, a slow smile stretched across his face. "Mr. Musk," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath, "you came." Elon sat beside him, forcing a smile. "Of course I did, Commander Alex. How's the mission log coming along?" Alex gave a weak laugh. "Almost ready for launch, but I wanted to give you something first." With trembling hands, he reached under his pillow and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. A star. "This is for you," Alex said, "so you can take it to Mars." Elon took the delicate paper star in his hands. It was uneven, slightly crumpled, but it was the most important thing he had ever held. "I promise I'll take it there," Elon said. his voice thick. "And when we land, we'll place it where everyone can see. You'll be the first astronaut on Mars, Alex." Alex's eyes sparkled, and for a moment, he looked weightless, limitless. "Really?" "Really," Alex gave a small nod, his breathing slowing. "Then I guess I'll be waiting up there for you." Elon squeezed his hand. "You'll always be up there." A quiet pause, then a small smile. "Thank you, Mr. Musk." That night, Alex took his last breath. Elon sat beside him long after the machines had gone silent. The world outside kept moving, but inside that tiny room, time stood still. Clara found him there an hour later, the folded paper star still clutched in his hands. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Elon didn't answer immediately. He simply looked up at the ceiling, at the stars beyond it, and said, "We're going to Mars, and we're bringing him with us." And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just talking about rockets. The funeral was held under an open sky. The stars shimmered above, indifferent to the loss felt by those gathered below. Family, friends, hospital staff, all mourning a boy who had dreamed of touching them. Elon stood at the back, apart from the crowd. He didn't know Alex's family personally. He had only met the boy twice, and yet something about this moment felt heavier than any board meeting, any failed launch, any loss he had ever faced. Alex's mother approached him after the service. Her eyes were puffy, but there was a strange serenity in her expression. She held something out to him, a small, weathered notebook. "He wanted you to have this," she said softly. "It's his mission log. He wrote everything he wanted to do. Plans for Mars, sketches of rockets, even ideas for space farms. He believed in you, Mr. Musk, until the very end." Elon took the notebook, his fingers running over the cover. Mission log. The pages were filled with the wild, brilliant imagination of a child who had never let reality dampen his dreams. His throat tightened. "I won't let his dream die," he said quietly. "I made him a promise." Alex's mother smiled, her eyes shining with something beyond grief. "Then keep it. Make Mars happen. Let the world remember him." Elon nodded. He turned away, walking toward his car, but before getting in, he looked up one last time. The stars blinked down at him, distant, unreachable, and yet, for the first time, they felt closer than ever. He pulled out the folded paper star from his pocket, gripping it tightly. "No matter how long it takes, I'll get us there." And in that moment, Elon Musk was no longer just building rockets. He was building a legacy. Years later, the world watched as the first manned SpaceX mission to Mars prepared for launch. Elon Musk stood in the control room, watching the massive rocket on the screen before him. Reporters, scientists, and government officials all gathered to witness history. But for Elon, this was about more than history. "T-minus 10 minutes to launch," a voice announced over the speakers. The crew was already inside the ship, final systems checks underway. Inside the cargo bay, carefully stored among the mission essentials, was something special, something that wasn't on any official manifest, a small folded paper star. Clara stood beside him, watching him closely. "Are you ready for this?" Elon's fingers brushed over the weathered pages of Alex's mission log, sitting beside him on the desk. "It's not about being ready," he said quietly. "It's about making sure we never stop moving forward." The countdown continued. Cameras zoomed in on Elon, waiting for a final statement. One reporter stepped forward. "Mr. Musk, today marks the realization of your lifelong dream. How does it feel, knowing humanity is about to take its first step toward Mars?" Elon hesitated, then spoke. "This isn't just my dream," he said. "It belongs to someone who never got to see it. But he's here. We made it, Alex." The room fell silent. The weight of his words sank in. Then, lift off. The rocket's engines ignited, flames bursting beneath it, propelling it toward the sky. The crowd erupted in cheers, the world watching as the first mission to Mars became reality. Months later, when the astronauts finally landed, one of their first tasks was to place something special inside the Mars habitat. A small, folded paper star resting beneath a plaque that read, "For Alex, who dreamed of the stars and became one of them." The photo of the paper star on Mars went viral, inspiring millions. Children around the world sent letters to SpaceX, drawing their own stars, writing their own dreams. Schools named space projects after Alex. His story became more than a tribute. It became a movement. And somewhere beyond the reach of Earth, his dream lived on. As Elon stood beneath the harsh Martian sky, red soil stretching endlessly before him, he looked at the paper star, its folds slightly worn but intact. He whispered, "You made it, Alex. We made it." And for the first time in his life, Elon Musk felt that the impossible was never truly out of reach, because some promises are bigger than time itself. This story isn't just about Elon Musk. It's about the power of dreams. No matter how small, no matter how impossible they seem. What's your dream? What's the one thing you refuse to let go of, no matter how many people say it can't be done? Drop a comment below and share your own impossible dream. Who knows? One day, the world might be watching as your story becomes history. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that prove nothing is truly out of reach.